bum, 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 bum. Bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-da bum bum ba-dum ba-da-dum dun 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 da 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 dum ba da dun 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 da dun dun bum ba da 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 dun 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 da dun dun da da. Hi! Oh my! Look at everyone! Hi everyone! Paulette from Colorado and Maureen from Denver and Teresa from Kansas City and Maria from Las Cruces in New Mexico. California, Kate, and oh, it's so wonderful to see everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight, everyone. It's great. Dara Lynn, hi from Dara Lynn, Florida. Mary, hello, Deborah. It's wonderful to see everyone. Thank you for joining me. And those are all my mighties. Now let's see what's going on with Facebook Livers. Click, here we go. And here we go. Nice to see everyone. Dolly, beautiful. California and Virginia and Kentucky. Hi from Kentucky, says Tiffany. Oklahoma. Sandy, beautiful. I love to see where everyone's from. I hope you don't mind, folks, that I like to do this. Alice is from Toronto. Hello from South Carolina. That's Jill. Beautiful, beautiful. Love to see you all. Connecticut, Nebraska, Colorado. It's a beautiful thing, folks. Hi. So, good evening. For those of you who know me, I'm Joette Calabrese. So, hi, how are you? I'm your homeopath, your educator. That's the way I like to consider myself, although I love taking cases. I have to say that a big part of my life is teaching, and it's this kind of teaching and also in person when I can do that. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a homeopath of 3+ decades. Studied under many other homeopaths, have written books and materia medica and courses. And now, my dear friends, we are working like maniacs to put together the Academy. So the Academy of Practical Homeopathy. And I'm very excited about that. So if you are interested, you can certainly contact my office. We're looking at applications at this very moment. And it will be starting soon. We're doing this very quickly. We do nothing over a long period of time. No matter what it is that I've done in my life, I kind of pretty much do it very quickly. I mean, it's not as though this is something I haven't thought about for many years, but this is going to be something much different than what I've ever done before. It's going to be very thorough. It's a full year of study, meeting every week. Lots and lots of great things to learn and courses, etc., that are all part of the Academy. So I won't go into it too much. I just wanted to let you know about that. But tonight we're going to talk about, I wrote about this medicine as a medicine that's specific for parasites. But let me also tell you, this remedy has got other very valuable bits of information that I shouldn't call them bits of information, has a very sweeping ability. Let's put it that way, okay? A sweeping ability. But it's also known for parasites, and it's not my first medicine that I consider for parasites. It's actually the second one that I consider, but you ought to know about it because it's particularly valuable for pinworms. Pinworms, I know, sounds disgusting, and they are, but, it's pretty common. Anyway, the medicine is called Spigelia, 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 and it's a great medicine for intestinal parasites. Now, the first medicine that we use, that I always consider first, is, let's see if folks know. I know you're going to know. I know the mighties will know. There's no doubt about that. And I will bet there are a lot of folks on Facebook Live who also know what the first medicine is that I consider most important for parasites. And let me also add that this medicine is used for babies, children, teens, adults, menopausal women, menopausal men, the elderly, goats, chickens, ducks, cows, dogs, cats, you name it. These medicines can be used across the board for all species. We do not have speciesism here. We do not have any affinity to only one species. We go across the board. That's what homeopathy does. So let's see if some folks know what medicine is the first one I would think of, and that this Spigelia then becomes second to. Let's just see. You bet. Let's see the first person who said it. Awesome, 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 wonderful. Kay says Cina. Adrienne says Cina. M says Cina. Lisa says Cina. Harry had to refresh and said China, but Rachna, it's Cina. And you know what's confusing? Cina is different than China, and it's a very confusing situation. So China is cinchona, but Cina is different. So Cina is actually wormwood, made from wormwood. So you can use this Cina. And so does Pat, Melissa, Jennifer, Robin, Cina, Michelle, absolutely, Jill. You're great. You're great. Yeah, Monica says 6C or 200C. And here's the interesting part of Cina. And this is not what we're going to be only talking about tonight, but Cina is one of those medicines that's actually great as a tincture as well. So we can use Cina mother tincture. Now, when it's a mother tincture, it's an alcohol. And because it's in, yes, here we go. Other people, all my Facebook Live people, Heather says Cina, Alicia, Veronique says Cina. Yes, you're right. And let's just see. Cina, Amiko says Cina. You bet. So when it's in mother tincture, we have to think a little differently, because mother tincture, remember, is botanical. That's a botanical. It's not a homeopathic. Homeopathic means it's been diluted according to the Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia International. And it means that it has been diluted and succussed and diluted and succussed. So there's a number after it. 2X, 2C, 6X, 6C, et cetera, 12, 30X, 30C, et cetera. That's how you know it's homeopathic. And that means that they've been diluted and succussed between each dilution process. For those of you who don't know about it, I've written about this many times. I'm sure you'll find that on my blog. Fascinating method. So you can use it in mother tincture. However, mother tincture, because it's an alcohol, generally the way it's administered is an alcohol. And you wouldn't want to give that to a newborn. You wouldn't want to give that to a baby. You might not be able to give that to an animal that is that might be sensitive to alcohol. But you could certainly give it to older children and adults. However, what's lovely about homeopathy is you don't have to administer it in alcohol. We don't have to use the botanical. We can actually use the homeopathic medicine. And then we would use it in a 3 or a 6 or 12 or a 30 or a 200. We can use it in any of those.
What page are you on?
What page am I on? In my Materia Medica, I'm on page 114. So I'm going to be reading to you from my Materia Medica on Spigelia, the medicine we're talking about tonight. Bring it up a little further. For those of you who don't have my Materia Medica, you might be interested in that. If you have it, great. You can follow me on this. If you don't, you can read other Materia Medicas. Mine's not the only one. There are many Materia Medicas. Some of them are free online as well. But tonight, we're going to say Cina is generally the first choice I make, but Spigelia is a very good second choice. Now, I don't often start with Spigelia unless there are other indications that lead me to believe that Spigelia should be considered. And I'll tell you what they are. So as I read some of these characteristics or these conditions that Spigelia works so well with, if the person also happens to have parasites, you've got a dead ringer for the right medicine. And I would skip over using Cina, and I would use just Spigelia instead. So let me read to you. Perry, would you mind?
What, honey?
I need the light on.
Sure.
I always do this. When it's time to read and it's getting dark, I can't see. Okay, there we are. Okay, Spigelia, I'm going to read directly from my Materia Medica. Spigelia has a particular affinity for problems of the heart, the eyes, and nervous system. It is also used to eliminate intestinal parasites such as tapeworm and roundworm, as well as pinworms, by the way. from the body, and to relieve headaches, migraines, and sinus infections. So it has a lot to do with the sinuses. Now, what's fascinating about the problem with parasites is that a lot of times, particularly pinworms, there is a nose issue. And one of the ways that we consider the possibility that someone might have pinworms is that the child is always picking the nose, or the baby is always rubbing the nose into the bed, pushing across the bed, trying to get there's a sensation in the nose. So the nose has a lot to do with, believe it or not, the rectum. And that's where these parasites reside, is in the colon and in the rectum. And so there is that, I know it sounds odd, but there is a very strong connection. So the fact that Spigelia is a parasite medicine, as well as a sinus and nose medicine, and the sinus is around the nose, then we do want to consider how these two medicines might be connected. So the remedy is helpful in treating heart ailments, as I said, such as rheumatic heart, pericarditis, coronary heart disease, heart murmurs, valve disorders. And we're not going to go too much into this, but it also happens to be a very good medicine for angina. Angina is pain of the heart, including constricting pains that spread into the chest, up or both arms, and up to the throat. In those who respond to Spigelia, the area just above the heart is extremely sensitive to touch, and the pulse rate may be feeble and erratic. In that case, I would use Spigelia in a 200C. On the way, where? On the way to the hospital. So I'm not telling you to ignore modern medicine. I'm telling you, you use these medicines on the way to the hospital. And you may find, as I have done many times in the past, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, spent time in the parking lot of the emergency room, where oftentimes the medicines can work very quickly for something like that, if it's an acute situation, and we just wait to see how the person's doing, or I would wait. I'm not telling you should do that. Okay. I want you to know that if somebody has angina and the pain is going down the arm, etc., and going into the throat, you do want, unless you are an ace homeopath, you do want to get to the emergency room and get some help. Meanwhile, you're administering Spigelia 200C maybe every 15 minutes, every 5 minutes even, if something is very severe. Okay. So it's also used for disorders of the nervous system. Now, this is also interesting because when someone has parasites, sometimes we see a central nervous system disorder, which means that you might see a little chorea. Now, what is chorea? It's like a little nervous shake or a little tremor. And you'll actually see a little shiver like this, or someone is compelled to move certain parts of the body, especially the neck and the head. It looks like a little tick. Not a tick that bites you, but a central nervous system tick, nervous tick. So you might see that. Now, if you see that and you see you're suspicious of parasites, and there's a sinus issue, we're starting to move more towards Spigelia and a little bit less towards Cina. Okay, an affinity for neuralgia of the trigeminal nerve. That's very important. And what's interesting about this, that this is a very specific remedy for left bones of the face and into the left eye. So we often will see, not often, we might see pain that is feels as though something sharp is going into the eye as part of the sinus infection, or as sinus pain, or neuralgia of some sort, and it often affects the left eye. Now, it does not mean, I don't want you to think that you must have parasites and the left eye pain and the nose issue. I don't want you to go thinking, and I always want to emphasize this, that you must have all of them. They're great. These medicines are great if there's enough intensity or clarity, I should say, to the totality of these symptoms. Then you can use the medicines without having all of that. What I want to emphasize is that you will see, if you see all of these, or a few of, not all of these, but many of these characteristics, symptoms, and then you want to consider the medicine a little more intensely. That's my point. So someone is saying, I love it for headaches. Yes, you bet, Kate. It is a great medicine for headaches, particularly those headaches that are sinus oriented, and especially if it goes into the left eye, or it starts in the left eye and then maybe goes into the right eye. So think about, when I started to get this pain, where did it begin? Oh, yes, it began in the left eye. I don't have pain there now, but I did before. And it was that pain for Spigelia is extraordinary. Now, I wrote a blog on this years ago when my son called me, and he had tremendous headache. He said, Mom, you've got to come over. I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. I've taken belladonna. I can't remember some of the other medicines. There's a picture of me leaving the house with the remedies in my hand, and as well as some, I think I had bone stock with me, because at the time he was sick with a cold or a flu, and I just wanted to give him some good nourishment. He said it feels like what people describe as migraines, and indeed Spigelia is a great medicine for migraines. I don't believe it was a migraine. I believe it was a sinus, and sinus pain, by the way, folks, can be extraordinary, can be very painful. And particularly if it's the kind of sinus pain that Spigelia will act for. Because Spigelia has very intense head pain. All right, let's see what we've got here. Let me read a little bit more. In effect, it's the nervous system may account for its ability to ease migraines, my migraine headaches, sinus infections, neuralgia of rheumatic. No, I need to have the light on. Yes, thank you. Excruciating pain in the left eye and the left temple. I should mention that, the left temple. The eyes may feel too big for the orbits, and the pain may feel like something is pressing on the eyes and becomes worse from a person when the person moves them around. The pupils expand and even the eyeballs become very sensitive to touch. The pain worsens from movement, noise, touch, cold, moist, rainy weather. Rainy weather. Think about that. Rainy weather. A lot of people suffer from rainy or shifting barometric pressure changes. So they might feel better if they're laying down on the right side. I'm still reading from my Materia Medica. With the head in an elevated position while inhaling. They may feel worse from noise, from washing, or from being touched. And so I did not spend a lot of time in my Materia Medica talking about Spigelia for worms. But I think that it's important, which is why I'm doing this tonight. I want to expand the information that I've included. Now, some people say, so how do I know that I have worms? Well, there are ways to know, and if there's rectal itching, there's inability to fall asleep. There may be some of these other conditions. The child is rubbing his nose or putting his fingers in his nose, or lots of itching, especially at night at the rectal area. It can be tested if you have a doctor that you can take the test to. Some use stool tests. I have not found, at least years ago, I don't know about what they're doing today, but I've not found that to be as valuable as the other tests that are given, which are not at all invasive. It's a matter of getting tape and putting the tape at the area and when the eggs may be laid, which is in the evening and nighttime. I don't want to go too deeply into that. It's something that you might want to look into. But do you need to know 100% if the person does have parasites? I mean, do we need to know that? We don't have to know, but I then want you to be aware of the fact that there could be if you use the medicine because everything else is lining up, or you know that the other family members have had pinworms or these kinds of parasites, that you want to take a chance and give it. It's not a dangerous chance, but you want to take a chance on using Spigelia for someone whose symptoms line up as I've just discussed. Then you can go ahead and use Spigelia and see how it works, and see if you see it. Perhaps there's the pinworms are expelled, or the other tapeworm is expelled. You might notice that. Or the rectal itching stops, or there's another issue with stomach aches, as a matter of fact, that have to do with, especially around the navel. that are related to these kinds of parasites. So let's just see what we've got here. If we've got anything else. Yes. Yeah, everyone's getting it right. Cina. Absolutely. Cina, 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 Cina. Oh, my bad. Thanks, says Harry. Hi from Chico, says Christine. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think I included Cina in my Materia Medica because it's not, did I put it? I don't remember. I may have not put it in there. Yes. I didn't put every remedy in there. So I do want to make a point. I should point that out to folks that there are hundreds of homeopathic medicines. So it's important that you know that what one author doesn't include, others will. All righty. I'm not going to go too much into how you'll absolutely know whether or not you've got these parasites or someone in your family, but I will also tell you when it comes to pinworms, it's highly unlikely that if one person has them, that no one else in the family has them. If one person has pinworms, pretty much everyone has them. They're highly contagious. So if one person has them and you're pretty sure of it, then everyone gets Cina or Spigelia. That's the way we do this. So Spigelia, I use it in a 30th potency and I've used it in a 200 potency. And in both situations, I use it twice daily. But I have to tell you that worms, parasites have a life cycle in that is about 28 days. But then the eggs are hatched are hatched. And so you need another 28 days. So I usually tell folks that we use these medicines for these particular infestations for a minimum of 2 months, more likely 3 months. And then we see how the person is doing. Let's see what potency. Okay, I gave you the potency. All right. Let's just see. Cinchona's in there, different. Cinchona's different than Cina. I'd love to see another Materia Medica by you. Well, you know what? I do plan on adding more to the Materia Medica. Not at this moment, though. Right now, we're working on this academy, and it's taking every moment of my day. All right. Then after the picture, can you wash with soap and water? There is really good diatomaceous soap for, yes, when it's jumping around for dogs that maybe, yes. Diatomaceous earth is a very good thing to use too. I don't know that I've written about that, but diatomaceous earth, you want food grade if you're going to use that. Some people swear by it and they use it, they add it to food, especially for their dogs. Someone said, if we have a heartbeat, we have parasites. Actually, Anne, I think that is so. I really do think that is so. I can't say 100%, but my sense is that how could we not have parasites? We eat lettuce. We eat meat. We have our fingers, we put our fingers in our mouths. It is part of being human. The problem is when it becomes an infection. And so what would be the difference? So a big infestation would be an infection which it's taken over. When we understand that there are 100 trillion cells in the human body and 90% of them are not even human, they're microorganisms. That means we have a lot of microorganisms in the body. And without them, I don't think we would be able to live, to be honest. I believe we all have herpes. I believe we all have staph. We all have strep. We all have, dare I say, corona. We have all of these microorganisms in our bodies. Now, parasites are a little more visible, most of them. Liver flukes are not so visible, and there are others that I'm sure I don't know the name of. There are too many to name. But when it comes to tapeworm, that means it's a little different. We don't want to live with a tapeworm. And pinworms can be quite bothersome if it gets out of hand. What's out of hand? Does it mean we're going to kill every single pinworm? Possibly, possibly not. And I don't know that I have the exact answer, but I have for a long time considered exactly that point, that without parasites, we would not be full microorganisms. So we just don't want them to be proliferating to a great degree that would cause what? We don't want them to cause pathology, because that's what we use homeopathy for. Homeopathy is all about treating pathology. It's a beautiful thing. So a lot of times people say, well, I have the MTHFR gene. Well, are you sick? No. Then there's nothing to treat. That's the way I look at that. But I also have an inheritance of another gene. I don't know all the names of all the genes that they're starting to identify. But if you're not sick, there's nothing to be done. So sometimes we dig too deeply. I think that's what's happened in the last year and a half, would you say? Twice a day for 3 months? You bet, Paula. That's the way I would use it. What about chicken mites? Chicken mites are different because the mites are generally in the feathers, on the skin. That's a different situation. I'm talking about intestinal. I should have made that very clear. I do make it clear in the Materia Medica, but these are intestinal that we're talking about. Let's see. Thank you very much, Juliana. That's very interesting. Indeed, it's only the immunocompromised that appear to hold adverse effects from bacteria, worms, fungus. To a certain degree, yes. You don't have to have something very serious either. If something is off in the gut or something is off on the thyroid, et cetera, then yes, we're more susceptible. Just like if we are not getting outside and getting fresh air and sunshine, and we're not eating good food, we don't have a good, healthy diet and a good, healthy lifestyle, then when the colds come around, that's what we get, right? We get sick when our immunity is down. Is Spigelia your automatic second choice if Cina fails? Pretty much, yeah. Parasites probably play a beneficial role when in balance in a healthy, well-nourished person. I tend to agree with that, Alice. I can't say that I absolutely know this for sure. Liver flukes are different, folks. They're different. Heartworm in a cat, I personally have used Cina for heartworm for our own dog. Now, let me also say that there are no-sodes. If you can find a good vet who treats with no-sodes, those are homeopathic medicines that are a little bit more specific. I wish I could give you a list of vets, homeopathic vets. Dr. Pitcairn has written many good books, so you might want to look at him. How often? I already said that, so I think these questions were coming in a little early before I got that far. Okay, headaches. What is so for Spigelia, I use a 200C, no doubt about it. That's exactly how I use it. Let's see. And they said we have to take remedies always, and that it doesn't do any good to treat it if the whole family doesn't treat it. I don't know that I believe that. I think you want to try to treat the whole family if you can, but let's say you didn't know that. Not every member of the family necessarily will have pathology in relationship to it. So although it's highly contagious, these pinworms, they are contagious, it doesn't necessarily mean that every single person needs to be treated. You would treat every person in the family if you said, wow, you know what? He's itchy. He's not sleeping. His nose, we're putting it all together. Then in that case, yes. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily absolutely every person. Okay, let's see. Make sure they have loose dirt for dust baths. Oh, we're talking about the chickens, I think. That sounds like chickens take dust baths. And no, liver flukes. I'm sorry. I know that liver flukes are a big part of a specific thinking in naturopathy. And I find that instead of treating them as parasites for liver flukes, I use medicines that are specific for the liver because I want to see a condition. So remember, if you don't see a condition that is specific to treat, then we're not going to treat it. At least that's the way we do this in homeopathy. So if there's a condition with the liver, besides the flukes, but actual symptoms, something that is uncomfortable, there's a tender, the liver is tender to the touch. The person is nauseous frequently. We want to find more liver conditions, and then we would treat the liver specifically. And I cover that very thoroughly in my course, Good Gut, Bad Gut. Okay. Here we go. Somebody's giving some names of some vets, some homeopathic vets. Thank you very much. And Dr. Pitcairn, Pitcairne. He's written many books. If you own animals, you might want to get his book. There are many other great books by other vets. Okay, let's just see. High cholesterol. We're not going to talk about high cholesterol, but I do talk about it. My Good Gut, Bad Gut course. And let us see. I think I have to dash off. Would you believe it's already 8:31? Holy cow, the time goes by fast. This is amazing. So for those of you who are interested in more information, you can always contact us on my website. But even if you're not, just go to my blog and learn and study and use what you can that I give away for free. And so with that, I say thank you for joining me tonight, and God bless all of you. And I'll see you next week, same time.
Just look at it.
No.
I mean, it's a 16-second delay.
Hi there, I'm Cortana, and I'm here to help.
Click on it.